On one side stood the army of Israel, men trained for battle, warriors who had seen conflict before. On the other side stood the Philistines, fierce and confident, ready to conquer. But this was no ordinary standoff. Every morning and every evening, a single figure stepped forward from the Philistine camp, a giant named Goliath. He was unlike anything the Israelites had ever seen. Towering over 9 feet tall, his armor alone weighed more than most men could carry. His spear was thick like a weaver's beam, and the iron tip gleamed under the sun. He didn't just come to fight. He came to intimidate. "Choose a man," Goliath shouted across the valley. "Send him to fight me. If he wins, we will serve you. But if I win, you will serve us." His voice echoed like thunder, and every time he spoke, fear spread through the Israelite camp. Days passed. Then, weeks, 40 days of the same challenge, and no answer. Even King Saul, the tallest and strongest among Israel, stood silent, because fear had taken hold. Far from the battlefield in the quiet hills of Bethlehem, a young shepherd named David lived a very different life. While others trained for war, David cared for sheep. While others learned to fight, David learned to trust. He spent his days in the fields watching, protecting, and guiding his flock. But those lonely days shaped him. Out there, David wasn't just tending sheep. He was building a relationship with God. One day, his father Jesse called him. "Take this food to your brothers," he said. "See how they are doing at the battle." David obeyed without hesitation. He carried bread, grain, and cheese, simple things, but he had no idea he was walking into a moment that would change his life forever. When David arrived at the camp, he found confusion, fear, and tension. Men moved around, but their confidence was gone.
Then he heard it, a booming voice from across the valley. "Goliath." David listened as the giant mocked Israel, not just the army, but their God. And something stirred inside him. "Who is this man?" David asked. "Why is no one standing against him?" The soldiers explained the situation, the challenge, the fear, the reward promised by the king to anyone who would defeat Goliath. But David didn't focus on the reward. He focused on the disrespect. "This man is defying the armies of the living God," David said. Where others saw a giant, David saw a problem that needed to be faced. Word of David's boldness reached King Saul. Curious and desperate, Saul called for him. When David stood before the king, he said something shocking. "Don't let anyone lose heart. I will fight this giant." Saul looked at him carefully. "You are just a boy," he replied, "and he has been a warrior since his youth." But David wasn't speaking from pride. He was speaking from experience. As a shepherd, David explained, "I have faced lions and bears. When they attacked my sheep, I didn't run. I fought them, and God delivered me." Then he said something powerful. "The same God who rescued me then will rescue me now." This wasn't blind confidence. This was tested faith. Saul, still unsure, offered David his own armor, helmet, shield, sword. David tried it on, but something wasn't right. He could barely move. This armor was built for someone else, so David made a bold decision. He took it off. Sometimes, what looks like protection can actually slow you down. David chose something simpler, but more familiar. He picked up his staff, his sling, and selected 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. Not because he lacked faith, but because he was prepared. As David walked onto the battlefield, all eyes turned toward him. A boy against a giant. Goliath saw him and laughed. "Am I a dog," he sneered, "that you come at me with sticks?" To Goliath, this was an insult. But David didn't flinch. He stood firm and declared, "You come to me with sword and spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord." Then he added, "This day, everyone will know that there is a God in Israel." This wasn't just a fight. It was a statement of faith. Goliath moved forward, confident, powerful, unstoppable. But David didn't step back. He ran toward the giant. In one swift motion, he placed a stone in his sling, spun it, and released it. The stone cut through the air with precision, and in a single moment, it struck Goliath directly on the forehead. The giant stopped, staggered, then fell face down to the ground. Silence filled the valley, then shock.
Then victory. David didn't hesitate. He ran forward, took Goliath's own sword, and ensured the victory was complete. The Philistine army, seeing their champion defeated, turned and ran. The Israelites, once frozen in fear, now surged forward with courage. What fear had paralyzed, faith had overcome. This story is not just about a battle, it's about perspective. The army saw a giant too big to fight. David saw a giant too big to miss. It's about preparation. David didn't suddenly become brave. He built courage in the hidden places, fighting lions, facing fear, trusting God when no one was watching. It's about identity. David didn't try to be someone else. He didn't rely on Saul's armor. He used what he had and trusted who he knew. And most importantly, it's about faith. Not loud, emotional faith, but quiet, steady, proven trust. Everyone faces giants, fear, doubt, failure, delay, rejection. They stand in front of you shouting, "You can't win." But the story of David reminds us, you don't need to be the strongest. You don't need to be the biggest. You don't need to look ready. You just need to trust God and take the step. Because sometimes all it takes is one stone, one moment of courage, and one act of faith to change everything.